Hello, my name is Alberto Gomez, and I am with Movement Mortgage. And I always brag that I received the Harvard education when I got into the mortgage industry about 30 years ago. And back then we used to do everything by hand. And one of the things that we always worked on a lot was qualifying people instead of just putting numbers into a computer. So you, as a loan officer, need to be the expert at your trade. You can make a difference in people's lives, but you need to know what you're doing, especially up front. Think of yourself as when you go to the doctor doesn't tell you how they're going to examine you. You go in and they tell you what to do. So in the mortgage industry, you need to know the numbers better than anybody. You need to know your trade, your craft, and knowing numbers is extremely important. So I want to talk to you about how to qualify somebody, figure out how much they can afford. This is not about figuring out their income. That's a whole different class. This is once you know their income, how much they can afford. So a couple of things that you need to know. Mortgage rates or interest rates have a factor. That factor is how the payment is derived. So the easiest way to figure out what the factor is, if you have a mortgage calculator, is by doing $1,000 as the loan amount, and then use your interest rate that you want to figure out the payment for, and that payment is basically the factor. So what I mean by that is, let's say for instance you put in $1,000 at an interest rate of 3%, then you would see that you are paying over 30 years $4.21. So 4.21 would be the factor. That's how you can figure out the factor for any interest rate. Now, you may not have a calculator, a mortgage calculator. If you don't have a mortgage calculator, there are also factor charts. And I've given one to Amanda that I believe she's going to post. If you can't find one, don't hesitate in giving me a call. I'll be more than happy to show you what I mean by the factors. Now, there's only one factor that is the same as the interest rate, and that is 6%. So, and I know you might think to yourself, wow, 6%. Well, there are rates today. There are programs out there with a 6% rate. And I'm sure that there'll be at some point, we will be back to a 6% market. And so if you know that 6%, the factor is 6, you can also work your way up and down from there if you don't have a rate, a factor sheet anywhere with you. So let's get started. How much does somebody qualify for? I'm going to use a real easy example. The first thing you need to know is obviously the factors. Have a factor sheet with you. Back in the olden days, we all used to have them on the back of our cards, but get your hands on a factor sheet or a factor chart. The second thing you want to ask people is how much they're making. So once you figure out their income, and for my example, I'm going to use that somebody's making $10,000 a month. Now, know your ratios also. So I'm going to use a program where we're going to say that the front ratio is 31% and the back ratio is 45%. And I know that nowadays with DU and all that, those can be wishy-washy, but let's say this program is a hard 45% back ratio. Let me explain what that means. So that means that I said 31-45. Let's say that 31% of their monthly income can go towards housing. And let's say that 45% of their income can go towards housing plus debts. So this person making $10,000 a month, they can afford at 31%, their housing payment would be $3,100 a month. That's 31% of 10,000. Their housing plus debt could be $4,500. That's just simply 45% of 10,000. That gives you $4,500. So how much can they have in debt? Well, subtract the $3,100 from the $4,500. So this person can have in debt up to $1,400. That's just $4,500 minus $3,100 gives you $1,400. That's how much they can have in debt. But let's work with the 31%. Let's figure out, okay, if their payment, it can be up to $3,100, what does that mean as far as a mortgage? how much money is that? How much mortgage is that? So you got to remember that that 3,100 includes everything. That includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So to make this as easy as possible, we're just going to assume that this is an FHA loan, excuse me, a conventional loan, and they're putting 10% down. Okay. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3,100 and I'm going to multiply that times 75%. Now, the reason why I say 75%, and you might be doing 76, 77, you might be doing a little more. It depends on where they're buying because of taxes and so forth. I'm just using 75 to be safe. So I'm going to take $3,100 and I'm going to, because that's what they can afford as a payment, and I'm going to multiply that times 75%. That's going to give me by the way, I'm doing it times 75% because the 25% that I'm subtracting out from the 3,100 represents insurance, taxes, and any mortgage insurance that they might have. So now my principal and interest, my P&I, is $2,325. Okay. Now I'm going to assume we're going to go with a 3% interest rate. This borrower has told me that they have a 740 credit score. So I'm going to take the factor of 3%, which is 4.21. And I'm going to take my 2325. I'm going to divide it by the factor, which is 4.21, but I'm going to make it 0.421%. So in my calculator, and you don't need a mortgage calculator, just a regular old calculator, you're going to take $2,325 and you're going to divide that by the 3% factor, because 3% is the rate that you are offering them. And remember, that's 4.21, but I'm going to slide the decimal and I'm going to make it 0.421 and I'm going to hit percent, which will now make it 0.00421. And that's going to give you an amount of $552,000. That's what the P&I is going to be on a $552,000 loan at 3%. The principal and interest will be $2,325. So I picked an example in Montgomery County. I found a property that was, I found an example in Montgomery County that was for sale at $600,000. So if the borrower on that house wants to know a payment, can they afford it? I can quickly figure it out without the needs for any computer or fancy calculators. With just a regular calculator on my phone, I can figure it out quickly. So I'm going to take my $600,000 sales price. They're putting 10% down. So that means that they're putting $60,000 down. So their loan amount is going to be $540,000. The principal and interest on a $540,000 loan at 3% is $2,277. It might be a couple cents less than that, but that's basically what it is. And by the way, to figure that out, it's easy. Take $540,000 loan, $540,000 times the factor for 3%, which we said was 4.21. You do the same thing. Now you're going to do 540,000 times 0.421, just like you did when you were dividing it to figure out the loan amount. Now we're going in reverse. So take your loan amount, $540,000 times 0.421%, and that gives you a payment of $2,276 and change. I'm going to round it up to make my life easy and call it $2,277. Now, this property that I'm talking about is one located in Silver Spring. It's at 9321 Sudbury Road. I don't even know the realtor there, but I looked it up, and the taxes on that property happen to be $475 a month. I'm going to estimate the homeowner's insurance is about $120 a month. And then you can deal with any mortgage insurance company that you like. They all have an app that you can calculate the mortgage insurance. So the one that I use a lot is Nation's mortgage insurance, National Mortgage Insurance. And the reason why I use it is because they have local reps and they have an easy to use application that you can download to your phone. So I put in the information. It takes you about less than a minute. And remember, in my case, I have 2 borrowers. They have income of $10,000. They have credit of $740,000. Sales price, so excuse me, credit of 740. They're buying a $600,000 property in Montgomery County. I put all that in. I get a factor of 0.17%. I then take my loan amount of $540,000 times the mortgage insurance factor of 0.17%, and that gives me a monthly mortgage insurance of $77. So let me recap. I have a principal and interest, $2,277. I have a tax bill of property tax of $475 per month. I have insurance, homeowners insurance of $120 a month, and I have mortgage insurance of $77. So that gives me a total of $2,899 as their payment. Now, we said that they could afford up to $3,100 according to the ratios. So I'm within my guidelines. Now, this gives you the ability to do 2 things. If rates go up, remember, the higher the rates go up, the less people can afford. So I have about a $200 gap there. So if they found a house that's a little more expensive, or the house had higher taxes, let's say they found a house in the same price range, but it's waterfront and taxes are more expensive, or it has a homeowners association of $150. So that's why I like to use the 25% gap in there so that I can have a little bit of leeway. And that is how you figure out what somebody can afford every month.